welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. Some interesting watch news for you. For this, we go to Ueno, which is an area of Tokyo. There's some great pre-owned watch shopping there, some seedy pay-for-play areas if that's your thing, and some good kebab restaurants. For this, we go to our correspondent, me. Take it away. Just came from an awesome pre-owned shop. It's right behind me. No filming inside. They were really strict about it, but what amazing pieces, but not cheap. All right, so just some of the things I remember. A 1991 14060 with service papers, and that was 13,000 USD. That's an early 90s piece, and early 90s pieces have tritium as opposed to the Luminova, and generally they used to go for less here in Japan. Japanese people tend to like the newer things, and so you could get a deal on tritium pieces. And my first piece, the 14060, I got it for, well, one reason, because of the tritium. I wanted the tritium because A, it would patina, I love that vintage look, and B, it was cheaper. Still, tritium is kind of nasty stuff. It can corrode the dial, it's radioactive, but again, it's beautiful when it patinas, and so there's some advantages to it. And are we seeing some appreciation? What do you think? Another cool piece they had a G serial 16570 with a thin frame dial, box, papers. It was a used piece. That was 1,400,000 or 500,000 yen, just let's call it 14 or 15,000. That's a really cool, potentially collectible piece with a thin frame dial. And then this is really interesting. You know what they had that was 3,000 more? A 1991 16570. Why? Because it had tritium. All right, I think it had box and papers, pretty sure it did. But tritium, now tritium used to make things go for cheaper here. It's changed. Tritium, according to them, is upping the price. So a tritium 16570 was 3,000 more than an end of the run thin frame dial 16570. An end of the run Explorer 2, which would have the 3186 movement, the newer movement, the no holes case, the solid in-link bracelet, the engraved rehaut, and the relatively rare thin frame dial, which just means that the surrounds on the indices are thinner. And that's kind of special. They're kind of cool. And it was actually going for cheaper than a tritium piece. Now this is kind of interesting because I'm sure if you took them a tritium piece to sell, they'd say, it's an older piece, we can't give you that much money for it. But if you're looking to buy, it's a tritium piece. They're vintage, they're collectible. So I think it depends on which end of the deal you're on, but tritium, I think, is having a resurgence. And that's interesting because I have a viewer, Paul Thorpe, not the Paul Thorpe that makes the videos, but another Paul Thorpe who is really into vintage watches. So much so that I thought it was the other Paul Thorpe for a long time, and I thought, wow, I mean, you know a lot about vintage watches. You should talk about that on your channel. Anyway, different Paul Thorpe. And this Paul Thorpe really called it, as far as the collectability of tritium, years ago, in fact. And I remember thinking, yeah, I don't know, but it's happening. So tritium dialed watches, all right, they're becoming a thing here in Japan. All right, what else do you have? Leave us with something. I'll leave you with this, and that is 3 GMT Master 2s that they had, 16710s. All of them, well, hold on, 2 of them M serials, one's a Z. Okay, these were brand new pieces, unworn, all right? What's the price? Well, for the M serials, which have the 3186 movement, 3,580,000 yen. For the Z serial with the 3185 movement, 3,480,000 yen. That's only 100,000 yen cheaper. I mean, you would totally spend a measly $1,000 to get the 3186 movement GMT Master 2, that M serial. Those are so rare. They had 2 of them in there. So let's talk through this, and let me just catch everybody up to speed. We're talking about the 16710, the last of the pre-ceramic GMT Master 2s, and towards the end of the run, which was, I want to say that model ended in 2007, towards the end of the run, they changed the movement. So the latter Z serials, and Z serials are 2006, 2007, all right? So the 2007 Z serials and the last of the last M serials. M serials are 2007, 2008, so those early M's had the 3186 movement, and that had, or has, the blue parachrome spring. Is different than the older 3185 movement, which they used for, well, over a decade. And that's very special. I mean, just basically the last of the Z serials and those, those early M's before they shut off the tap of the 16710, those are the only ones with the 3186 movement. Super collectible, super collectible. Now they also, again, as was explained, had an early Z serial, all right? And it was an unworn piece and a very special piece, but only $1,000 cheaper than the M serials. I mean, this Z serial had the 3185 movement. It's not really that special. So the question is the Z serial too expensive, or are the M serials too cheap? I mean, it's only $1,000 difference. Well, what do you think? The M serials are, well, they're kind of overpriced, but the Z serial is totally overpriced, all right? Because, well, it's only $1,000 less. That's like seeing a Rolex watch on a NATO strap and another identical Rolex watch for $100 less on the real, authentic bracelet. It would be like, you'd be insane to go for the NATO strap version, even though it's cheaper. You'd totally, pony up $100 for the one with the bracelet. Same thing here. You would totally pony up $1,000 to have that last of the last M serial. So it's kind of interesting that they do that. So they need to lower the price of, in my opinion, all of those, but significantly the 3185 movement Z serial. But again, if you don't know what you're doing and you see two M's and the Z and they tell you, well, it's it's the last of the 3185 movement, that's an iconic movement, and it was, you might say, well, I mean, they just have one of them left and it's cheaper, and you got the two M serials and maybe there are a plethora of those, and you might choose the wrong one. So that's really interesting. Well, it goes to show you have to know what you're looking for, but those are crazy prices. I would say that, in my opinion, the last of the last M serials, probably about 25,000 USD. That's what I think is a fair price, but that's just what I think. What do you think about this news? Hopefully some interesting stuff there. Satin Doll has fantastic pieces, but really expensive. It's the place where you would go if you just had so much money that you could overpay, but you just wanted the best of the best. You're willing to pay for it. Take care. Thanks for watching. See you next time.